Hey, it's Jeff Cannata with another newest, latest, best mini talking about Fallout 4. Oh my gosh, it's 5 a.m. on Monday, so I'm able to put this video out on Fallout 4. I'm not sure how much of a mini this is actually going to be because I have a lot to say. I've been playing Fallout 4 for a week now, lucky enough to get an early access copy, and I'm about 40 hours in. Which is just feels like it's just scratching the surface. I don't know. I'm actually pretty far in the main storyline, I believe, but there is so much to do in this game. There is so much to see, so much to experience, so many storylines to play through. 40 hours really does feel like just scratching the surface. This is a game that's going to be hundreds of hours of gameplay for the people that want to get the most out of it, and I think it's going to be very rewarding. It's going to be interesting to see the reception. I think this game has such massive anticipation for it, and in a lot of ways it's a very clunky game. In a lot of ways it feels very last gen. It clearly was built on the same engine that Fallout 3 was on. It does not feel particularly next gen. The graphics are a little low res and the animations are very stiff, and you know, side by side with something like Witcher 3, which is another open world, big sprawling role playing game, I think that a lot of people are going to think that Fallout 3 or Fallout 4 does not compare favorably aesthetically. However, from a gameplay perspective, from a story perspective, from a depth and world building perspective, Fallout 4 is one of the most incredible games I have ever played. I'm a huge Bethesda fan, have played all of the Fallout games. The only one I didn't finish is New Vegas. But all the Bethesda developed games and all the Elder Scrolls titles, you know, even back to Arena and the old game, Morrowind was really the first game that I really played a lot of. Oblivion was the first perfect gamer score I got on Xbox 360, 1,000 gamer score on Oblivion. Played the crap out of Skyrim. I think that Fallout 4 is a far better game than Fallout 3, which is a game I finished and put about 100 hours in as well. Is a far better game than Fallout 3, and it is, I would say, a better game than Skyrim in a lot of ways. This is a game that it does what Bethesda does better than any of the other Bethesda games that do it, and Bethesda is the best people at what they do, which is world building. And I think it's an easy phrase to throw around, and so let me try to define what I'm talking about. I love The Witcher 3. I love all the Witcher games, and I think that The Witcher 3 is going to be right up there in the discussion for Game of the Year, as it should be. The world is much more vibrant. It feels very next-gen. It's so much more pleasing to the eye. The animations are incredible. It feels like a vibrant, living world. But where it doesn't do what Fallout 4 does, which is manifest such a densely populated geography. You know, here in Fallout 4, you're in Boston. It is a very authentic post-apocalyptic Boston in the sense of the geography. And there's so many things to see and experience. And what Bethesda does better than anybody else is tell the story of their world just by its creation, just by how things are laid out, just by the things you encounter. It truly is a game about discovery. And where a lot of role-playing games give lip service to discovery, Bethesda games are about discovery. They're about walking into a room or a building or a dungeon or something and finding evidence of the people who've lived there, finding a logic to how everything is laid out. I'll give you one very specific example, and I won't give any spoilers, but there's one mission pretty far into the game where you end up having to go into this building, and the building is a modern structure that has been blown apart in the inside, and there's a series of ladders and walkways that the raiders, the post-apocalyptic bad guys have constructed to get around, and they've dug deep into this pit. And as you walk along these catwalks, there's raiders attacking you on all sides, and you see how they lived. You see how they put together that world and the things that they needed to survive there. And as you go deeper and deeper down, you see that the bottom of the building where the foundation was is all blown apart, and you go deeper into where the sub basement of that original building was, and they've been digging down there. They've been looking for something, and you eventually discover what it is that they've been looking for. All of that is pretty much ancillary to the actual quest that sent you there. It's not really what the quest is about, but the world, the environment, the way those levels are laid out tells you a story, and that is just rampant in Fallout 4. Every structure, everything you come upon, the entire layout of the world is so rich in story. Not to mention the quests themselves. You know, in most games you have a very well laid out, very vibrant main storyline, and then the side quests feel much slighter, much less interesting, there's not as much time taken in the writing. Not so in Fallout 4. Every quest seems deep and interesting. They're long. They send you into interesting places. They have you do wildly different, interesting things, and you're discovering stories and factions. And the interrelationship between those factions is so fascinating and so enthralling and draws from such rich sci-fi history. I mean, there's influences of Blade Runner in this game, in Battlestar Galactica, the TV series in this game, of course, Mad Max and the post-apocalyptic, mythos there. There's so many cool different factions and storylines and the ways in which those play against each other, and you eventually get to the point where you need to decide which of those factions is most important to you as the player. I mean, there's so much to talk about with this game. It is so big and so vast, and there's so much to do. They have doubled down on the looting and having that feeling of finding things in the wasteland be important, because now you're managing all of these different settlements, and it's very much a Farmville-esque mini game where you can build whatever you want. I found that I was worried that was going to feel tedious. I found that to be pretty interesting and fun, and it really, as the game progresses, you really are building this empire and transforming the face of the entire area into something that you've created and you have saved, and all these settlers are doing and working the land in the ways that you've decided. But the game is very clunky also. The way that works is never really very well explained to the player. There were times when I was looking for things, trying to figure out where in the menu system a specific thing I wanted to build was, because it wasn't very clear. Why is a radio tower under the power subheading? It took a while to figure that out. Once you find things, it's very clunky to actually assign settlers to do certain things, like certain objects in your settlements need to have people associated with them. So you literally have to run around until you find a person, click on that person, and then assign them. All of that could have been done much more elegantly. You have these new companions now. You start out with this dog, but you get other companions, and the management of the companions is very clunky. There's lots of that weird sort of last gen feeling clunkiness in regard to how people that walk into certain situations, or somebody will start talking to you when you're having another conversation. It doesn't feel entirely cohesive and held together. And yet, as much as those are annoyances and those make the game feel very sort of outdated in a lot of ways, it's such a drop in the bucket compared to how many times my jaw was on the floor not from the ways that video games usually make my jaw hit the floor. This was like things that I was actually getting to do, things that I was actually getting to discover, things that I was actually getting to affect the world with. With Halo 5 recently, I finished the campaign on that, and really the things you discover are all these cutscenes, right? And in Fallout 4, you're doing things, you're going places, you're discovering things. There are these incredible moments where I was like, I couldn't believe I was getting to do this. I couldn't believe I was getting to go to these places. I was holding my breath because there were these amazing locations that I was venturing into that were scary and wild. And the game does such a great job of managing its systems. I happen to love the VATS system. I really, really do. And while the upgrade paths are very overwhelming at first, and you have these wildly different options. You're leveling up so often, and you have points to spend so frequently that you really get to dabble in a lot of things, and you always feel like there's really cool choices to be made on that talent tree, and how you can sort of plug and play in different areas, and you don't have to, buy the thing above it to get to the thing below it. It's all very, very cool. Also, VATS is great, but the game feels more like a shooter than Fallout has ever felt. Even Fallout 3 didn't feel this much like a shooter. It really works as a shooter. I happen to be using the VATS system a lot, which I really liked, but there's new tweaks there as well, where you get to sort of queue and activate a critical hit when you've filled your meter. And the way that these levels are laid out so that you're fighting a lot of enemies, but they almost always end with a legendary enemy that's going to drop a legendary item, and the legendary items feel super cool because they've got these new properties that are sort of breaking the rules of the game, which is always fun. And the way that the game integrates your power armor now. In Fallout 3, power armor was this cool sort of end game thing that you could unlock and get. Power armor is a much bigger part of the game from the very beginning now, and it feels amazing. You can take down enemies you're not supposed to be able to take down yet because you use the power armor. Upgrading the power armor is awesome. As I said, this is not going to be a short discussion because I have put so much time in this game, and I have had so much fun discovering things. I'm not going to spoil anything, but I hope you stay away from story spoilers because there are so many incredibly well-realized storylines that come out of this, and where you go and discovering how this world is held together. And it really, I think the mainline storyline of your character and what he wants might be the least interesting storyline in the game. I mean, it is interesting in its own way, and there's really cool things you do with that storyline, but there's so much richness in the different factions and how they interplay with one another, and the characters that you meet and the characters that you get to hang out with throughout the game are incredible. I'm going to be talking about this game a lot on my podcast DLC at 5by5.tv/DLC as well. So listen to that. Christian has played it, and he and I will have a long discussion about that on Monday as well. But I think if anybody gives this game the time that it asks of the player, they are going to be richly, richly rewarded. It is a game that may not be the most beautiful game you've ever played, but it is going to deliver one of the most robust, interesting, densely packed worlds, both in terms of geography, in terms of things to see and do, and in terms of storylines and characters. There's these incredible storylines where I'm so drawn in, and I have so many different things that I can do at any given time, and all of them are equally as interesting. And the crafting system is interesting now. There's just so much there. It's almost overwhelming, and I think there's a lot of people that will be turned off by just the immensity of what the game asks of you. But for people that want to buy a $60 game and have hundreds of hours of potential entertainment, Fallout 4 delivers in a way that few games ever have. And I think it's a new high bar for Bethesda. I think that these systems that they've put in place are coming together and working together so well, and it's just a shame that the game has been in development so long that it really shows its age visually, and sort of with the clunky animations and the way characters sort of are clunkily bumping into one another and getting in the way, and there's a lot of stuff like that reveals its sort of gaminess, I guess you could say. It doesn't. It's not elegant in a lot of ways, in the ways that The Witcher is elegant, in the ways that especially like Metal Gear Solid 5 is elegant, the way, every animation works right in that game, and every animal and every weapon and everything works together. There's never going to be a point in those games where you see sort of awkward looking doofy faces, and that happens a lot in Fallout 4. But if you can overlook that what you're going to find is an incredibly deep, rich experience. I can't wait to play more of it. Like I said, I'm only 40 hours in, and it feels like I can go for at least that again and probably much, much more. So, 15 minutes of video. I don't know how much I've said or not said. It's hard not talking about this game because, you know, the review embargo that Bethesda imposed on this meant that we couldn't even say that we've been playing it. And there are so many moments where I just wanted to jump onto Twitter and go, oh my God, I cannot believe what I just did, what I just got to see, what I just discovered. It's so fun to go into some new part of the world, and you are always rewarded in this game. And every time you venture out and every time you look into that little nook or cranny or open that chest or find that thing, you are always rewarded. And that is a remarkably satisfying experience. It really makes you feel like you want to be in this world, you want to discover everything about it, and the characters are interesting. I don't know. I think I'm repeating myself at this point because I can't talk in specifics. But I want to talk in specifics because the Pridwin, the creator of the Atom, Jim Valentine, there are so many, Diamond City. There's so many things that made me just gobsmacked at the imagination, at the level of detail, at the things I get to see and do. So, I think you're going to like it if you're a fan of these kinds of games, and you can overlook the sort of last-geniness of it. All right, let me know what you think in the comments. I hope this has been a helpful video. I'm sure everybody and their goat's going to be talking about Fallout 4 in the next couple of weeks, but I wanted to be one of the first since I've played so much of it over the last few days. I've been just hours and hours and hours of marathon gaming. So listen to DLC 5x5.tv/DLC this Monday. We'll talk about more of it, and maybe I'll do another video if you guys want to hear more specifics. Maybe I'll do a spoiler video. All right, thanks for watching, and subscribe. Hey, why not? I'll talk to you soon.